Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, and an unusual edition today, because although I know I'm meant to be solving this puzzle on the screen, which is by the constructor Botaku, a name I've seen on our Discord server, but I don't think it's a name that's appeared on the channel before, so this is a debut for Botaku. I do not know the instructions to this puzzle, so Mark has sent me an email. He wants me to open it live, which I presume means this is going to have some incredibly awful rule set, but he wants you guys to get to see my misery. So we shall do that in just a minute. Before we get started with that, though, I want to say a couple of things. Firstly, Sam's puzzle. This is our competition puzzle we have running at the moment until next Saturday. So the idea is to solve the puzzle on the screen now and to send in an email to us with your logical solution, and also there will be marks for artistic impression. We're going to choose the best three and send them over to Sam for judging, and the winner will win some merchandise. And yeah, we've already had some submissions actually. And I don't want to say anything too much about those submissions. Some people have managed to solve it. Many people have said at this point I needed to resort to Mark's favourite method in order to make progress, i.e. bifurcation. Or bifurcation ain't going to win you any merchandise. But this is a brilliant puzzle. Do check it out. Oh, and I should also say that yesterday in the video I said it had the same rule set as Demono's puzzle, which I covered in yesterday's video. It doesn't have an anti-knight constraint. Now, I did try and make that incredibly clear in the text under yesterday's video and in the community post, but I have seen a couple of people who have been assuming an anti-knight constraint. There is none in Sam's puzzle, so don't rely on that, please. Now, the other thing I want to mention, of course, is our Kickstarter campaign, which is going incredibly well. Now, in that regard, do have a look at it. We have just released 3 new stretch goals, which will probably take us all the way to the finish, just a few days away now before the campaign closes. And yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could meet those stretch goals as well? You may know that one of the early stretch goals we met was to have 10 puzzles from the community selected for the book. Well, unbelievably, we've had over 100 different puzzles selected for the shortlist there. So the people who've sponsored the Kickstarter so far will have to choose out of those 100 puzzles which 10 are your very favourite. But isn't that, I think it's a brilliant testament to the fact that Cracking the Cryptic has sort of got this incredibly high standard of quality, that, you know, it isn't like there are sort of 25 puzzles that sit head and shoulders above the rest. There are a lot of puzzles that people have been enjoying, and that gives me a lot of pleasure. Now, with that, let me click this and see what's going on with Botaku's puzzle. So here we go. Okay, I have the rules. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. Oh, well, that's good. Clues outside the grid give the sum of the cells along the indicated diagonal. Digits may repeat along these diagonals, so that's completely standard little killer clues. In addition, the grid contains 2 sets of clones, 8 little clones, all identical, which consist of 3 cells, and 3 big clones, all identical, which consist of 5 cells. Clones have an orthogonally connected shape. No 2 clones overlap. Furthermore, the digits contained in little clones follow the anti-knight rule. The big clones do not touch one another orthogonally, but each of them touches a different number of little clones orthogonally. What? Finally, the grey cell belongs to one of the clones. Oh, good grief, you're joking me. He is such a beep. He really is. I mean, this is just complete madness. Sorry, do you mind? I'm just going to read this again because this... Well, I'm not going to read the little killer stuff again. I want to read the clone stuff again. The grid contains 2 sets of clones, 8 little clones, all identical, which consist of 3 cells. 3 big clones, all identical, which consist of 5 cells. Okay, clones have an orthogonally connected shape. No 2 clones overlap. Little clones have anti-knight, so big clones don't. Big clones do not touch one another orthogonally, so presumably little clones can touch each other orthogonally. And big clones touch a different number of... I mean, this is... Please tell me that you guys watching this are as nonplussed by this rule set as I am, because that does not sound at all straightforward. That sounds monstrous. And, I mean, let's look at the grid. I mean, there isn't sort of a smorgasbord of information here. There is... Okay, there are 7 given digits and some little killer clues. Neither of the little killer clues looks in any way helpful. 16 in 3 cells, that either has to be 3 evens or 1 even and 2 odds. It can't be 3 odds, obviously. These 2 cells are weird in the sense that they look like they have to be 1 and 3 in order to complete the pattern. Right, okay, come on. Let's do have a go at this, by the way. Do have a go, I'm sure. I'm sure many of you have finished it already. The way to play it is to click the link under the video. And I've seen a couple of comments recently saying the introductions are getting quite long. Well, there's quite a lot to do in some of these introductions. You know, you have to spend 5 minutes understanding the rules. Now, let's get cracking. Come on. And... well, I mean, there's no Sudoku to do because there's no repeated digit in the grid. So, how on earth do you start this? You've got... So the little clones are all of size 3. That is where I'm going to think about it first, because at least I can get a handle on that. I mean, a 5-cell shape is basically any of the 12 pentominoes, and the clue is in that number. There are 12 different types of pentominoes that are orthogonally connected, and that is a lot to try and get a handle on, whereas I suppose in terms of 3-cell clones, there's only a straight clone, a straight set of orthogonally connected cells, or some sort of L bend. Okay, well, I can see this is impossible. You can't have a clone that's straight. And that's probably, you guys are all shouting at your screens now because it's not too difficult to see. For example, if this was a straight clone, let's put an 8 into that cell. Where does this 8 go in the grid? I've got to put 8 of these in, but none of them can ever get to the top 2 rows of the grid because of the shape of the clone. So it doesn't matter. When I'm trying to put this shape into the top rows of the grid, I will always be able to put the 8 in this row, but I can never put it any higher because the clone will disappear off the top of the grid. So that means I've got to put 8 different 8s into 7 rows of the grid, and my elementary arithmetic tells me that will lead to a repeated 8. So, and obviously if it's that way round, I have exactly the same problem, just on the right hand side of the grid rather than the top of the grid. And you can think of it obviously identically just by trying to force the 1 downwards. So that doesn't work. Okay, that is a measure of progress. So we know we're looking for an L-shaped little clone. Now, sorry, I know I'm not saying anything. It's because I'm confused. I'm trying to understand how this is ever solvable. So, I mean, there are lots of different types of the, even if... Oh, no, okay. No, actually, no, I do think I've just noticed something about this. That was obvious to me. This has now become obvious to me, but it took me a lot longer to understand. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. That is really interesting. Because a clone of that shape can never... This digit, the elbow of the clone, can never appear on the right-hand side of the grid or at the bottom of the grid. Because no matter how I move this clone around in this grid, you can see that as soon as I try and get towards the right-hand side, the furthest I could get would be here. So this cell never gets into this column, and it never gets into this row. Oh, that's... yeah, okay. Okay, so I think that is a 4. So if the clone is this way... That's really clever. That is just really clever. It's really obvious once you think about it the right way, but it's not at all easy to actually do that, at least not for me. And it's the same. It's a similar logic to with a straight clone, but like if we think about my clone has disappeared. Now my clone is back. So if we're going to try and put 8 of these into the grid, we know that because we can never get to row 9 or column 9 with a clone of this shape, 8 4s will have to appear in this 8x8 grid. Now, if there are 8 4s in this 8x8 grid, that's almost all the 4s we'd expect to see in the puzzle. So where does the 9th 4 go? Well, we know there must be a 4 in column 9. We know there must be a 4 in row 9. So that 9th 4 must sit in the corner here and meet both of those criteria. So that's right. That's definitely right. So in fact, so then these are all even numbers. Okay. This is weird this is just really strange. So I don't know what the shape of the clone is, but you do know that if, for example, this was the clone, then there would be a 6 in the elbow. It's exactly the same logic. So this is the point of these corner cells, I think. These corner cells are telling us what goes in the elbow of the clone. So let's look at this clone, for example. How do I know that if the clone was this shape, this would have to be a 6? Well, it's because this clone can never get further to the left than this square. Let's delete that one again. So we get here. This would be the 6. That's the furthest left we could get it. So in this instance, we'd have to put 8 6s into exactly this region, because there would have to be 8 clones within this region. Well, the 6s in those 8 clones would have to be within these 8, this 8x8 region. So the 6 in... Then the 9th 6, if you like, needs to meet the criteria that it provides a 6 for row 1 and it provides a 6 for column 1. So I don't know if I'm explaining that terribly well, but I sort of get it, and I'm trying to explain it in the way that I see it. So what does all this mean? The answer is I do not know, but I do know that I have some thoughts now on the nature of the clone. So if we think of a 2x2 block, because basically this covers all of the different clone shapes we could have, we know the 6 will always be in that corner, the 4 will always be in that corner, the 8 will be in that corner, and the 2 will be in that corner. So some subset of this 2x2 region provides the small clone. I feel this is progress after 15 minutes, but I realise it's not even close to putting a pencil mark in the grid. So how do we know which one? That's the question. How do we know which one? Do we have to guess? I think, if you don't mind, and I hope you won't think this is bifurcation, I just want to play around with one of these. So I'm going to delete that one. Just so that I can get a handle on what this looks like. So let's imagine we're trying to fill the grid with a 2, 6, 8 clone. Right, we're trying to fill the grid with a 2, 6, 8 clone. So it feels like the elbow. When I mean the elbow, I mean this sort of cell is the critical one, because that's dictating so much about where the clone can be positioned. In fact, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I've got to put yeah, now I've got to put a 2 and an 8 into this box. And I've got to do that in such a way that I don't put a 6 in the box. Because if I put another 6 in box 1, obviously I've got 2 6s in box 1. So there have to be 2 clones, I think. So if this was the clone shape, you've got to put the 2. Where do you put the 2? Let's focus on the 2 first. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Where do you put the 2 in this box? You can't put the 2 in any position like this, because, or here. The 2 can't go here because the 6 would be beneath it and the 8 would be off the grid. So the 2 can only go in those 2 cells, because any higher, if we try and put the 2 here, that would be the 6, that would be the 8, and you get a repeated digit. So that the 2 has to be in one of these positions. And the 8 works the same way, but in those positions. So, oh, oopsie. So you've got to put 2 down here and 8 on this side, but you can see these 8s and these 2s can't be part of the same clone. It's impossible. So you'd have... Yeah. Look, I'm getting somewhere here. I'm getting somewhere, because now, if we know that 8 in box 1 has to be in one of those positions, look at the clone. The clone is telling us that the 6 is directly to the right of the 8. So you can pencil mark 6s here, and similarly the 2 is directly above the 6. So there must be a 6 in one of those. Now we get some interesting pairs. So in the central box, the 6 must be there. Look at this. This is just beautiful. So now, if this is the clone, you have to put a 6 here. And that logic is going to work, whatever the clone is, because you always have this elbow position forced. And what that's doing is it's forcing the 6 into one of those 3 positions. And now you can't put a 6 here, because if you put a 6 here, what happens? You've got to put a 2 there. And if you put a 6 here, you've got to put an 8 here. So that's impossible. You can never have the 6 in either of those 2 cells. So in fact, you reach the position where that's a 6, therefore that's a 2, and that's an 8. So and that breaks. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Look, the 6s here mean there's got to be a 6 in one of these 3 positions. So it's got to be in one of those two positions. Well, it can't be here, because that will be a knight's move away from this. We know that this is, we know on the presumption that we're looking at this shape of clone, that would force a clone here. It will force a 6, well, it forces a 6 into one of those positions. If this is another clone in that position, these are a knight's move away from each other. And we can't put any 6s in the grid, in this 8x8 grid, that are not clones, because we know we've got to put 8 clones into this 8x8 region. So we know that these would have to be clones, and obviously this can't be a clone, because it's a knight's move away. And you may say, well, that's fine. Well, it's not fine though, is it? Because now I'll have to put the 6 here, and now, of course, this has to be both a 2 and an 8 simultaneously, and that's impossible. So this is not right, actually. This is just not right. But it's not right, but it's not right in the way that's actually helpful, because it's giving me an insight, I think, into what this puzzle looks like. So basically, this is really very cool. Why is it very cool? It's very cool because of these squares. Now, I can't quite get my head around. Well, I think it's going to have to be that one, isn't it? This is just amazing. It's just amazing. Because if we know this isn't the real clone, we know that this particular arrangement is not the real clone. Now, if the real clone, on the other hand, was that one, surely I'm going to run into a problem with the 7 then, in exactly the same way by symmetry. If it's this one, I'm probably going to run into a problem with both of these. So I think the only thing that's going to work is that one, but probably I should prove that. Let's actually just do that slowly so that we can convince ourselves that I'm not going completely doolally. So if... Now, and this will also be a test of whether the logic I've done so far is correct. If that is the real clone, we should be able to now write in its values, because we should know that that's got to be the 4, because a clone of this shape can never reach column 9 or row 9. This one is going to be a 2, this one is going to be an 8. And that's exactly the same logic. You know that this will have to be the 2, because a clone of this shape can never reach row 9 or column 1. And the 8, obviously, we can never get to the top row or column 9. So this would be, I think, the implied clone. Now, going back to the elbow, yeah, okay, let's think about the elbow position, because this is what gives us the useful pencil marks around the box. So where do you put the 2 and the 8 in this box? The 2 is going to have to go in one of those two squares. The 8 is going to have to go in one of those two squares in order to keep a 4 out of this box. You can't repeat a 4 in the box. That implies there's a 4 in one of those two, a 4 in one of these two. They zap those squares, force the 4 into the corner. So the logic is good. Now, I think this will fail, and it will fail. Not so silly, Simon. Because look, the 4's here, force a 4 into one of those squares. We know this can't be a 4, because that's a knight's move away. So the 4 has to go here. As soon as the 4 goes here, this needs to be a 2 and an 8 simultaneously. So the logic is good. And obviously, I say obviously, I'm still going to do it because I'm a pedant like that. I'm also going to, so which ones, I've ruled out that one. Which was the other one I ruled out? Was it this one or was it that one? I think it was this one. This one is the one I didn't look at yet. I'm expecting this one to be correct, but I'm going to rule this one out. So that means we've got to get, there's got to be an 8 here. There's got to be a 6 there, and there's got to be a 4 there. Now, so again, the challenge with this one is to get the 4 and the 6 into this box. So where can the 4 go in this box? If I'm not going to put an 8 in the box as well, it's got to be in one of those two. The 6 has got to be in one of these two. That plonks 8s into these two. That plonks the 8 into the corner. Now, yeah, okay, so now this double breaks this time because there's nowhere to put an 8 in this box. You'd have to put it here. The cell above it would be a 4. You can't put an 8 here, so this would have to be an 8. That would have to simultaneously be a 4 and a 6. So we are starting to understand the puzzle. This is all good. And we must be heading for a record in terms of absence of pencil marks. 25 minutes, no pencil marks. I'm still, in fact, now look, I've got nothing in the grid at all after 26 minutes. Sorry, I'm sorry. Now, so this I am convinced is correct. Let us put the clone into that position. Now that means, what are we looking at? We're going to be looking at a 2 here. That's a 4. That's a 6, I think. And this time the challenge is to put the 4 and the 6 into this box such that we don't break the 2. So you can see here that will mean the 4 will have to be exactly in one of those two positions. The 6 will have to be in exactly one of those two positions. And now there's nothing here or here to break it. So these two cells are important. So now 6 we know, what do we know? Sorry, what am I talking about? I'm talking, these are in the wrong positions. That's why I was looking at, sorry, let's go back here. In order to make the 6 work, the 6 has to be here, so the 2 can be above it and out of the box. The 4 has to be here, therefore the 2 is there. That's better because I'm now looking at these squares. So now the 2 can't be here because of the knight's move. It can't be here because that would plonk a 4 on top of it. So the 2 goes here and there is space for it. The 2 should also go here by the same logic because the 2 can't go here. If the 2's there, that has to be a 6. So we get 2's on the 13 diagonal, and we can put the clones in because these must be part of clones. That must be a 6, that must be a 4, that's a 6, that's a 4, and we've got 3 clones now placed and 9 digits all of a sudden. Now, can we take this further? Yes, we can. Where does 4 go in this box now? It can't go a knight's move away from itself. It has to go here. So that means there's a clone there. That's a 4, that's a 2, that's a 6. And we're going to make sure we keep 2 chevrons apart. Fantastic half man, half biscuit song. 4 now must be in one of those 2 cells. So 2 must be in one of those. 6 must be underneath it. So 6 has got to be in one of these 2. So 2 has got to be in one of these 2, and 4 has got to be in one of these 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 4 clones positioned. I've got another one up here, 5. I've got 2 dotted around this box here and 1 over here. But I can't actually... How do you see which ones of these is correct? Sorry about this. 6, 4, 2, 6. apologies. I'm not spotting this at all. 2, 6. The 2's in one of these, the 4's in one of those. No, okay. We have to be careful with that, don't we? 4, 2, 6, 6, 2. I'm not sure. Let me just have a look at this. 4, 2, 6. I'm hoping there's going to be a knight's move or something like that that unwinds this. 6, 2, 4 would be like that. Now, in that situation, the final clone would have to be 4. Good. Yeah, there you go. These two end up hitting. Well, in fact, these two clones that are 4s. That's really difficult to see, and I was incredibly slow at spotting that. But let's go back to it, and I can sort of try and explain it. What happens if you go for a clone in this position is that this 6 here forces this to become into a clone, which places this clone here. But remember, we still have to get a 4 into this region. The only way we can now do that is there, and these two clones can entirely overlap from a knight's move perspective. So you'd have two clones like this, and you can see they're all hitting each other. But yeah, that was not obvious to me, so apologies. But it's true, and it does allow us to make progress, because now we can go 4, 2, 6. That must be forced. We can get rid of the pencil marks. This 4 is forcing a clone here, therefore, so that must be 4, 2, 6. And now we have to make sure we avoid this being a knight's move away. So this would have to be the last, well, not the last clone, but the last clone in this region. So we get 4, 2, 6, 4, 2, 6. And now that 4 sees that one. So the last clone is there. And I pray that this is not going to result in any clashes. So let's put all of these, colour them in, and stare at it for a while. That's okay. That is okay. So none of those are overlapping. None of them are a knight's move away. And 32 minutes in, I have placed all the clones. Now hang on, there was a grey cell in the grid. Wasn't it there? I don't know where it's gone. I think there was a grey cell there. How can I tell that? I don't really know how to tell that. I think there was one. If I colour those a different colour, yeah, it was there, because that purple is a different colour. You can see. So that originally there was a different colour. That cell wasn't white. We can use the software to help us. So this was grey. And this grey is a clone, isn't it? Let me go back to the rules. What we've got is we've got 8 little clones, all identical, which consist of 3 cells. We found those 3 big clones, which are the pentominoes. Clones are orthogonal, no 2 clones overlap. The big clones do not touch one another orthogonally, but each of them touches a different number of little clones orthogonally, and the grey cell belongs to one of the clones. So, this grey cell belongs to a 5 cell. Oh, well, it can't have a 2 in it, because I've already placed 9 2s in the grid. So, if I try and put this in a clone, I've then got to put 2 more clones in the grid that contain 2s that don't overlap with the purples, and that will lead to a multitude of 2s, the likes of which is impossible. So we must avoid the 2 and place a W pentomino as our big clone. What I want to know from Botaku is, what on earth was going on in your mind when you thought about setting this puzzle? This is madness. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful madness, but it's absolutely insane. Anyway, We'll come back to the insanity of Botaku later. Maybe I'll call the video that, but so this one touches 2. This one touches 2 little clones, so the other ones have to touch not 2. Okay, so it can't be that. Oh, it can't be that W pentomino. That would just touch 2 clones. So I'm literally, I think, going to have to work out in the grid where I can put W pentominos which don't touch 2. That one touches 4. Something's nagging me about that one. Can't see what it is. How do I touch 3? 3 would be there. I could do it like that. 3 could be there as well. Oh, good grief. Look, there's loads of places. So this hits 3, that hits 3, and that hits 3, and this hits 4. So how many have I found now? I think there's one here. That one's possible. There's one here. That one's possible. There's one here. All of those hit 3. There's one here that hits 4. I don't want to make it grey because grey is real. Let's make it blue. And there's another one here that hits 4, and I could make that one. I think I have to make it yellow. So I think these are all the possible pentominos that don't only hit 2 clones. So look at this one again. There's something bugging me about this one. What is it? Is this possible? So if this was the clone, this would be in, this would be in. I'm just trying to think of the, because obviously there's going to be repeated digits therefore between this clone and this clone. Oh, no, I tell you what is bugging me about this. This one is impossible, not because of its relationship to this clone, but its relationship to these 3 clones. This square, oh my goodness me. This square, whatever you put in this square, let's make it a 1. We know one of these W's, one of either this, this, or this, will have to have a 1 in their central position. Because they must be a clone. And this one here actually sees the central cell of each of the possible clones that hits 3 of the little clones. So this is not possible. That is weird, but very welcome. So now we know this, we can turn this grey. This is real. Aha! Now this is huge because this is on the diagonal. Those 3 squares have to add up to 9 because we've got 2 at the moment. Well, we've got 4 at the 2 2s at the moment, so we've got 4. These have to add up to 9. But this is a clone of this, and these 3 squares are all in the same box. So all 3 of these cells have to be different digits, and they can't include a 2 because you can't put a 2 anywhere on this diagonal. So this can't be 1, 2, 6, and it can't be 2, 3, 4. The only other way of making 9 in 3 cells without using a 2 is 1, 3, 5. This has to be a 1, 3, 5 diagonal, which means that has to be a 1, 3, 5 diagonal. So it looks like it might be this one is the real clone. That would allow a 5 in both of those positions. In fact it is. This is the real clone. This is the real clone. And the way to see that is to think about whether this could be. Let's look at this one first. So let's put a digit in here. Let's put 3 in there. Now if we put 3 in the centre of the clone, that has to be a 3. And this has to be a 3. But now look, where do we put the 3 in box 1? 3, 3. There's nowhere. You can't repeat it in the clone. Or can you? Actually, that's a good... No, you can't. You can't because that would then have to be a 3. And that must be different. So you can't have 3 3s. I mean, you couldn't have 2 3s there anyway. But that, okay, goodness, that is really... I didn't spot the possibility of that being a 3 before. I was thinking about whether I could put a 3 here, and you can't. So this is not possible. Now, I think by symmetry, this is going to work identically down here because this cell rules that one out. So again, the same logic applies, and you can't have either of those being the real clone. So let's go back here, remove these. This is the real clone. That gives us 5s in the grid. Those must be 5s. Let's remove 5s from those because we know that these 3 digits are different digits. We can put 1, 3 into the corners here. And I'm now actually hopeful I might be able to solve this puzzle because I have done the clones basically now. So all I've got to do, he says, is finish the rest of it off. Now, those 3 squares have got to be 7, 8 and 9. And that can't be 9 and that can't be 7. So we can put 8, 9 here, 7, 8 here, 8, 9 here, 7, 8 here. And the only clue I haven't used yet is this diagonal. Okay, well there must be an 8 on this diagonal, because how do you get to 16 in 3 digits? Well, by parity, I either need 3 even digits, which is completely impossible because I've already used 3 even digits in the box off the diagonal, or I need 1 even digit and 2 odds. So the last even digit is on this diagonal, and that can't be an 8. So the last even digit is in one of those 2 cells. So this is either 1, 7, 8, or it's 3, 5, 8. Oh, I know what I can do. I can colour. Because, yeah, this is very interesting. Look, whatever this cell is, it must repeat in this cell because of the clone. And that means that must be the same digit, and that means by Sudoku, look, that must be the same digit. So all of the, I'm going to colour these in a different colour. All of these blue squares are the same. So that means we should look back at this one now. So this, and this are all the same. And that, that is actually, I think, important. In fact, that must be the same as well, I've just noticed by Sudoku. But that wasn't what I just noticed. Let me double check whether there's anything else easier than this. But let's come back and let me highlight those in green. So the green cells are all equal to one another. The blue cells are all equal to each other. Now look here. That means one of those two squares is green. Don't know which one, don't care. Because that means that the green in box 9, where does it go? Well, if there's a green in one of those two, and this green's up here, this must be green. Well, that means that either a 1 or a 3 is not on this diagonal. But there must be a 1 or a 3 on that diagonal, because we know that this is either 817 or 835. So the other digit, the blue digit, must be on this diagonal, and where can it go? Well, look, by Sudoku, it's got two options, but only one of those is on the diagonal. So this has to be blue. This is unbelievable setting. It's unbelievable. We are in total mad genius territory here. Absolutely extraordinary this puzzle is. So now this has to be blue. That means that has to be 8. Now by Sudoku, that has to be blue. That has to be blue. This has to be blue. We're going to get all the blues. That has to be blue. That is all of them. That must be green by Sudoku. Or maybe we don't get all the greens. We probably can, I'm just not seeing how to do it. But this 8, look, that's seeing that one. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's going to give us a 9 here. That's on the clone, so that becomes a 9. That becomes a 9. This row, we know that blues and greens are 1s and 3s, so it still needs a 7, so that's a 7 by Sudoku. So this column this column needs 5 and 8, and that square definitely can't be an 8, so that's a 5, that's an 8. This 8 sees that one, so that's a 7, that's an 8. This is on the clone, that's a 7, that's a 7. Apologies, let me just think again. Yeah, okay, now look at this column. We need to put 8 and 9 into the white squares, and there's a 9 here. So that's a 9, that's an 8, that's a 9. Must be a 9 in one of those. These are a 1-3 pair. And what I'm trying to do here is to spot the white squares. So this square must be a 5. It's the only digit that's not 1-3 in this box. There must be a 5 in one of... Ooh! There must be a 5 in one of those two positions. That is not on the diagonal, so this diagonal must be 817, and we know therefore this must be the 1. So blue is 1, and we can go through the grid and put 1 into a lot of squares. Now we can go through the grid and put 3 into a lot of squares. And we can write 7 in the corner here. That's a 7, that's a 9. Oh, please let me get this right. I will be so thrilled if I manage to solve this. This is about as hard a puzzle as I can remember solving before that. Well, the A-Haupt one was sort of like that, but this really would be a triumph for me. 8 here by Sudoku. These are 3 and 5, we can do that. That plonks the 5 in there. That means this must be a 9. It still looks like it's working. That's 3, 7. I can't see how to resolve that. Except that is a 7, I think. So that's a 7, that's a 3, that's a 3, and that looks like a 5. And I'm going to click. Yes! That is quite a good solve. I do not know really how to express my, admiration. I mean, Botaku goes straight to the in the list of the world's top compilers of Sudoku. he is automatically on that list as a result of this one puzzle. I can tell you that, because that puzzle is, well, you're dealing with some sort of mad genius. That is quite stunning setting. And if you don't believe me, just think about what must go through someone's mind to begin the process of setting this puzzle. What do? Do you sit down with your cup of tea and go, I know what I'll do. I'll create a grid that's got 8 different clones in it, and I will make it so that it's actually possible to place those 8 clones at the start by using the corners. And, even if you start having these ideas, the sort of the thematic development, the beauty of it, and even once you get those clones, these 3 big clones are not easy. And it all gets resolved by sort of a parity question by this 16 and this 13. And this clone having, a mirror here. I mean, it's just simply stunning. It is simply stunning. My hat is off to you, Botaku. That is absolutely a work of Sudoku art. I am very sorry it's taken me... Well, I'm sorry it took me this long to solve it, but I honestly don't think I could have taken much less time to solve it. This is really difficult, for me at least, really difficult stuff. And I'm thrilled that I got through it and that you'll be able to see this puzzle because it deserves an audience. And yeah, with that, now I'm going to go and phone Mark. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Right, see you later on Cracking the Cryptic.